Hi, gang. Are you able to see that? That headline, that story? Is it in reverse when you see it? I want to talk about this. I actually want to talk about the president's birthday today. Happy birthday, Mr. President. For real. But there's so much conversation that's playing itself out on the message board that I've just perused. Let me just adjust my camera. That let's talk about Kyle Rittenhouse for just a sec. I can see that Joe the Nerd, among others, very fired up about the outcome of the Kyle Rittenhouse case. I'm paraphrasing what Joe says here, but he thinks that it's a perversion of justice. I do not. I'll tell you what's a perversion of justice. A perversion of justice is all the partisan rooting that has taken place for one outcome or another. How did that begin and why? Here's what I said to Aaron Burnett on CNN last night, and tell me if you think this makes any sense. I said to Aaron Burnett last night that, and this is not a be-all and end-all explanation, but one of the reasons that I think this case took on such partisan dimensions is that there's this perception on the right that there has been outsized media attention paid to the events of January 6th. By the way, parenthetically, I think the events of January 6th are very serious. And as I said to Senator Roger Marshall yesterday on my radio program, require the level of investigation that they are receiving. I think that democracy really is in peril, as Gary Kasparov said to me on radio this week. Okay, back to the premise. So that's where I'm coming from. But my premise is that on the right, whether proper or not, there's this perception that January 6th has received outsized attention in comparison to that violence which followed urban unrest after the George Floyd killing. You know, they're demanding parity between the two. January 6th, well, let's talk about what happened in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Let's talk about what happened in Kenosha. Let's talk about what's happening in Portland, including last night. You know, it's all the whataboutism. By the way, I want looters and rioters locked up. I don't put that on the same scale as an attempt at overthrowing our own government, like we had on January 6th. But again, the perception on the right is that there's not enough attention that gets paid to these other events. All they want to talk about on the left are the events of January the 6th. So now into this fray, into this context, steps Kyle Rittenhouse, who I think, and you've heard me say this on radio this week, I think he's a troubled individual who was in a place he should not have been. And like many of you, I question the judgment, of a mom who is a willing participant in putting him in that location. So the guy's not a hero in my mind, and his acquittal does not make him a hero. David French wrote this for The Atlantic, a really good piece before the acquittal. And in it, I'm going to make reference to this on television today. French says, if the jury acquits Rittenhouse, it will not be a miscarriage of justice. The law gives even foolish men the right to defend their lives, but an acquittal does not make a foolish man a hero. A political movement that turns a deadly and ineffective vigilante into a role model is a movement that is courting more violence and encouraging more young men to recklessly brandish weapons in dangerous places, and that will spill more blood in America's streets. That sums up my thinking. You're saying, well, geez, Michael, you sound like Joe the Nerd, who believes this was a miscarriage of justice. No. I'm very critical of Rittenhouse and all the attendant circumstances, and I've explained to you why I think this case took on such partisan dimensions. But in the end, I'm okay with the legal analysis. I was wrong in thinking. I believed, especially after they were out for 4 days, 24 hours, I thought they were going to convict him of something. I never believed they were going to convict him of homicide. You heard me say maybe on radio yesterday that I thought there would be a verdict yesterday, and there was. But I thought that they were going to do something like convict on reckless endangerment so that he was not going to walk out of there scot-free. That's where I thought the trial was going. But on the most serious charges, I'm all right with the outcome because it requires Zabrudering the tape. You know the reference, right? Abraham Zapruder, who recorded on 8mm what happened in Dealey Plaza when Kennedy was assassinated. You've got to go frame by frame and analyze this thing as to what transpired. And when you do, the question at each individual step along the way, with the 3 people that he shot, the question at each step of the way is, did he have a perception that he was facing great bodily harm and had no escape and needed to use deadly force? And when it matters not how he got there. Under Wisconsin law, it matters not why he was there. The only reason so much information came into the trial, not the public domain, the trial, about why he was there and how he got there is because he took the stand in his own defense. If he hadn't done that, there wouldn't have been so much attention paid to that in the trial. So, when he's in those close encounters, forget everything else. When he's in those close encounters, did he need to use deadly force? And the jury said that he did. And I know you're feeling, some of you, like an arsonist has now been relieved of his crimes, even though we know he lit the match. But that's how I see Rittenhouse. Let me talk about something else, if I might. And I promise I'll read your response comments later, as I always do. Hey, but by the way, before I forget, just another housekeeping item or two. This YouTube channel has great content. It doesn't receive the level of attention that I think the content deserves. I know, I got a big ego, but that's what I think. I think, like yesterday, I put 3 great items on the YouTube channel. My interview with Republican United States Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas, my interview with Sarah Ganim, who at age 24 won a Pulitzer Prize for her coverage of Penn State and Sandusky and Paterno. Watch that interview. And then something totally offbeat. If you're curious about how I spend whatever limited free time I have, I recently completed a personal passion project, and I chronicled it. Actually, my mom took a lot of pictures of this project, and they were so cool. And I have this Temple film student named Eric Coombs working for me. And I said, Eric, here's a project for you. Go create this video. And he did. So watch that if you're interested. And Tuesday night here, I'm releasing my professionally recorded recent speech at the Reagan Library in California. And I think Tuesday night we'll have a chat like this if anybody's interested. Okay? What else do I want to say? Listen to TC After Dark. She and Dr. Maz do an analysis of me on her podcast this week. And for goodness sakes, buy one of those Smerconish.com t-shirts. By the way, they're only $20, and I got no skin in the game. I just want to see them. I'm not making a dime from them. Okay, back to where I started. So today is President Biden's 79th birthday. Yesterday, temporarily, he handed power over to Vice President Kamala Harris. She became the first woman to become acting president. The question is, and by the way, in contrast to when Trump had a colonoscopy and did not want Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney. Did I just say that? Holy crap. Did not want Mike Pence. He wouldn't have wanted Cheney either. I can't believe I said that. He did not want Mike Pence to be president, even for a couple of minutes. The president had a physical yesterday. We have the results of the physical as presented by his physician, not all the records. The physical did not include any cognitive testing, which I think you would typically expect to see for someone older. The results that were presented by the physician were positive and seemed straightforward. Dr. Kevin O'Connor The president's physician said that Mr. Biden had developed a more pronounced tendency to cough and clear his throat during speaking engagements. After running tests, including those meant to detect 19 various respiratory pathogens, he said that the culprit was gastroesophageal reflux or acid reflux, a condition treatable with Pepcid. Dr. O'Connor said that Mr. Biden's gait has become stiffer, which he said is caused by age-related changes in the president's spine. He added that an extremely detailed neurologic exam had ruled out the possibility that the stiffness could be caused by a stroke, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, or other neurological disorders. So here are a couple of the confluence of a couple of things going on. He had the physical yesterday. You know, a lot of us at the time of a birthday, I have a tendency to get my annual physical in the spring every year because that's when my birthday is. So he's celebrating a birthday. He had a physical, but this comes on the heels of a Politico morning consult survey, which was this. And this really, and it's not an outlier. It's not a one-off. There's other data I can point to that comes to a similar conclusion, but here's the bottom line. Voter doubts about the president's physical and mental well-being are dramatically on the rise. To wit, only 40% of voters surveyed agreed with the statement that Biden is in good health, while 50% disagreed. That 10 percentage point gap outside the poll's margin of error represents a massive 29-point shift since October of 2020. When Morning Consult last surveyed the question and found that voters believe Biden was in good health by a 19-point margin. So a total swing on the issue of whether people perceive him to be in good physical health. There's more. Asked whether Biden is mentally fit, voters are almost evenly split. 46% say that he is, 48% disagreeing, but that negative 2-point margin stands in stark contrast to Biden's numbers last October, when voters believed he was mentally fit by a 21-point margin. So huge shift on that question. And, you know, you would say, well, yeah, the R's say one thing, the D's say the other. The problem is that it's independents who are the sort of the backbone of this swing. Morning Consult generally shows that Trump voters and Republicans believe that Biden is neither physically nor mentally fit, and Biden voters believe the opposite. However, independents by a margin of 23 points don't agree that Biden is mentally fit now. One other thing I'm going to say, I hope I remember to say this on television today, but I'm going to say it to all of you. Why is there such a huge swing in the perception of Biden, his mental and physical fitness? By the way, I pray for his health and for his mental and physical well-being. And if you think that it's untoward to even have this conversation, I would remind you that from the get-go of the Trump administration, you had psychiatrists publishing books and signing petitions and saying he's mentally unfit. So when you're the president of the United States, I think that this is legitimate conversation, and I don't do it in a cheap shot kind of a way. So the point is, there's this perception now that he's in decline. Why is there such a rise in that perception? You could say, well, because he misspeaks, or he fell asleep at the climate meeting, or he tripped going up the steps, and maybe all of that has played a role. But more than anything else, I think it is the lack of a side-by-side comparison with Donald Trump. When you're seeing him, side by side with Trump, and Trump evokes this visceral reaction among people, that I think provided a lot of cover for Biden. But when Trump's not on the front page every day and people now are focused on Biden, they see him in a different way. That is my theory, and I am sticking to it. There's a Wall Street Journal editorial out there today. Where the hell did I put that? That says, hey, this is really a problem for the White House because Biden is perceived to be in poor health and Kamala Harris's numbers are really underwater. So Democrats better come up with a plan. I don't know where I put it, candidly. Oh, here it is. Yeah, this is the editorial in the Wall Street Journal today. As Joe Biden turns 79, a panic over Kamala Harris. So I want to talk about all these things, and I will talk about them with Mark Caputo from Politico, who wrote the story that accompanied the release of the data from Politico. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been one of those weeks, a fire hose of news stories. I wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving. Hard to believe that that is next week. I'll be working next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on radio. I'm also guest hosting for Chris Cuomo next Wednesday night, the night before Thanksgiving, and then I'll be, back here in the saddle next Saturday on television as well. So Tuesday night, the Reagan movie gets released. The Reagan speech gets released. It's so cool. I mean, I think I delivered a decent speech, but when you see the setting in which I spoke, it's phenomenal, unbelievable. And I would be so kicking myself if they hadn't recorded it, and thank God they did. So Reagan speech Tuesday night, I'll be here, I think, for a YouTube Live. I'm thinking that maybe we'll set it up so as the speech plays, we can chat throughout the course of the speech, which would be fine. Go watch my Sarah Ganim interview from yesterday, my Senator Marshall interview from yesterday. And if you're interested, my passion project, which I think you'll really get a kick out of, really get a kick out of. And listen to TC After Dark. All right. Thanks for everything. I'll see you soon on television, I hope. See ya.